Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest today is Benjamin. We're going to talk about self-leadership. We're going to talk about how to grow yourself as the powerful business owner that you are. Welcome to the show, Benjamin.
I feel more powerful just hearing that right now. That's like, let's go.
Let's go. Let's start by talking a bit about what you're doing in your business so our listeners have a frame of reference for who you are, what you specialize in.
Yeah, so basically we provide career coaching for leaders, work in a couple different buckets. We have individuals that don't know what they want to do and help them figure that out. And we have people that know what they want to do and help them get there. And then we have people that are doing something and they're unhappy and want to improve it. So generally that falls into, we work with emerging leaders, but also executive leaders on helping them define who they truly are and turn that into a meaningful career. And then on the other faucet that I have is just enterprise corporate clients. They tend to have different needs. When the person isn't paying and the company's paying, we tend to be focused on a couple different targets, such as executive career development, selection, general leadership development for kind of a variety of different positions.
Since we're speaking to entrepreneurs, I'd love to talk about self-leadership and how that plays out as a business owner with a business that hopefully they love. Although, having worked with clients for many years, and I'm sure you see this too, it's not uncommon for people to fall out of love with their business, or maybe they got into it for the wrong reasons, because it was something they knew how to do. Maybe it was a family business, or they were in a certain trade and they learned that trade and they said, I can do this better than this bonehead that I'm working for. And so they, you know, set out on this endeavor to create this business that really isn't fully and completely aligned with their passions. How does self-leadership play into that alignment with loving life, loving business? And maybe love is too strong of a word. Maybe people just want to not hate what they're doing, not feel like every morning,
Mm-hmm.
there's the pressure that weighs down their heart and they're just not happy.
Yeah, so overall, the types of clients that I work with tend to just not buy into the traditional 9 to 5 mentality, or that mentality has been holding them back in their career and their life. And so a lot of people that I work with are starting their own businesses or looking for ways to break free from the traditional concept of work. And so I tend to come across a lot of entrepreneurs, donate a lot of my time to entrepreneurs, absolutely love working with young founders. And self-leadership basically means you're accountable and you're empowered for your career. So you identify the things you care about, you know the path that you want to take for now till that changes. You feel comfortable enough to put yourself out there and to get curious and to try things out. So that's the confidence. And you built an environment around yourself that adds to your goals instead of takes away. So you're not around, negative influences, people, locations. You have created a world for yourself where external circumstances do not dictate how you show up in your day to day. You're still driven towards those goals. And in my career, I was not always a self leader. This is the concept tends to come from my own personal experiences. And generally, if you're trying to find what's important to you, look at the times where you struggled, where you got frustrated, or where your voids were. From our values come from our voids. From our voids come our values. From the ashes rise to phoenix. It's just me getting on a soapbox right now, because I believe it's really truly important to take a look at the times where you made mistakes, because they can be incredible lessons. And for me, when I was younger in my professional career, I wanted to start a business, did everything to start the business, and then did not start the business and decided to go to school to learn how to start a business, which makes absolutely no sense looking backwards in time. I also then fell into a different business and spent 5.5 years growing it and building a brand in it, even though I realized it wasn't right for me. And so then had to scrap 5.5 years worth of work in my life, even though I learned how to build a coaching practice from there, which has been invaluable for me today. And once I started learning some of these concepts around self-leadership, I got another business idea that was not related to what I was trying to create in my life. And instead of going all in and pivoting and having a sparkly object syndrome, I said to myself, I'm going to give myself a year for this business. I'm not going to let it take any time away from anything that I'm doing right now. It's additional time. And I have a cap on how much money I'm going to invest in it. And I'm just going to put it out in the world because I want to feel like I created an idea that I had instead of making that idea everything that I was doing because I thought it was a good idea. And so, like, the concepts of self-leadership have evolved over time and have been embedded in how I approach my work in my own business and how I try to instruct individuals with their own careers. That's a lot of information, so I'll pause for a moment.
Your story is probably relatable to quite a few people who are listening. It was the perfect answer to the question that I asked, because you just highlighted so uh so perfectly how this journey can sometimes evolve. For someone who is listening, who is committed to being a more deliberate, intentional leader of their own life, their own business, where do they begin? If they don't want to be just sort of winging it, and they don't want to be just simply going through the motions, they really want to be more intentional. What guidance would you give to someone? How can they get on that right trajectory?
First off, please give yourself some grace because it doesn't happen overnight. I spent 4.5, 5 years becoming confident. I spent another 4 to 5 years getting curious. And I spent 3 years after getting curious defining the thing that getting involved in the area that I wanted to be a part of. And then now I've spent 6 years building a business in that area. So what we're talking about takes time, but that time is just part of your overall journey. And you may feel incredibly rushed right now for things to happen tomorrow, but things will happen tomorrow. It just might not be the incredible transformational change that you might be wanting. And so it's important to just take a step back and be realistic in terms of how long something may take and give yourself some grace to enjoy the process along the way, as long as you're taking steps forward. Because those steps will build momentum, and that momentum will lead to change, and change leads to results overall. As also, I think the world of entrepreneurship says it's not the mountaintop that brings fulfillment, it's the journey and the path that you choose to get there along the way. And once you get to that mountaintop, you're eventually going to look up and see another one. So work never ends. Your career is supposed to go until you retire. So we have some time ahead of us. If
What
you're
are you
wondering where to start, once because I had now offered
what
a
are some of
disclaimer.
those what
Yeah.
are some of those things that people should be looking at? Maybe do some honest self-reflection and say,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, this is an area where
Yep.
I'm not being the powerful leader of myself that I could be, want to be, should be, in order to get to where I want to be.
There's three buckets that relate to self-leadership. I mentioned them already. There's clarity, confidence, and control. Generally, we don't take action towards the things that we care about because we're living in fear. We lack self-confidence. We don't know where we're going, or we're in an environment that doesn't serve us. So kind of the opposite of those pillars can be the things that holds us back. I'm going to repeat them. So if you don't know who you are, you're not sure of that. So you don't know what you really care about. And you don't have any idea of how to get there. Even if your idea is, I'm going to get curious and try things out, you're going to feel stuck. If you don't believe in yourself, or don't think you have the skills necessary to do the things that now you know you want to do, you're going to feel stuck. If you are in an environment that is just not serving what you want to do or tearing your confidence down, you're going to feel stuck. It's this concept of if you're in a burning building, You don't focus on repainting the walls. You have to focus on getting out of the building first. And so sometimes we don't give ourselves that grace again to say, am I in the right environment to help myself achieve my goals? So maybe achieving my goals actually will first require me to change my environment, which is okay. That's part of the process. So going back to clarity is generally where we need to start when we're trying to figure out how to get ourselves to lead ourselves forward, is we have to figure out why we're doing the thing that we're doing. Too often we just get an idea and we go after it. We don't fully stop and say, does this align with who I am and what I want to build and create for my life moving forwards? So those are generally your values. So for me personally, one of my top values is health. So everything that I'm building and I'm doing has to some way, shape, or form relate to mental, spiritual, physical, or emotional health. You can see that in my career. I went into health policy. I worked in healthcare. I care about nutrition and better for you consumer packaged goods. I'm involved in like psychedelic investing for mental health. And I work in leadership and career development, which focuses on professional development. Everything I do that can keep me motivated is in some way, shape, or form connected to my values. The reason why that's important is, let's say you're an entrepreneur and you go networking and you enter into a room. The one defining thing that's going to keep you from sitting there and doubting yourself, and the one thing that's going to keep you from not approaching people and starting conversations or sharing what you do for a living or what your business is or what you want it to be, is not knowing or fully believing in the thing that you want to do. And so that's where that clarity piece truly comes in. Once you know who you are at your core, then you can start plotting out, well, how do I maybe want to get there? And there is an infinite amount of paths that you can actually start taking towards your values. I mentioned already the 4 or 5 different things that I do in relationship to health. And generally, entrepreneurs tend to get stuck on picking the right path. The right path only shows up once you start walking. And so when we talk about clarity, you know who you are, you pick a way to get there. So maybe it's, what's my annual goal? Work backwards. What's your then 11th month goal, 10-month goal, 9-month goal, 8-month goal, etc. So what are the things you're going to physically, actively, tactically, strategically do with your energy to work towards something you care about? And guess what? If that thing doesn't work, if month 3 gets interrupted by something in an external circumstance that happens, you maybe try something else, but also might have to choose a different goal that aligns with your values. Like, you see this with businesses where maybe they have to rebrand their name, or maybe they have to adjust their product. Maybe they have to change their target market or customer. Maybe they have to adjust a marketing strategy. Your value stays the same, but the strategy itself changes. And being nimble, being flexible in that way, and being aware of the fact that you didn't fail, you're just adapting to circumstances to still help you go towards that mountaintop, is really important.
I want to make sure that we talk about your book. And I have a feeling it will segue nicely into this general conversation that we're having. Fear. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how fear plays in to self-leadership. And let's talk a little bit about your book, and maybe you can give us the highlight synopsis of what's in there and when it's coming out.
Yeah, so Becoming Fearless, Journey from Self-Doubt to Self-Mastery is coming out in the middle of September 2024. Totally can check that out at liveforyourselfconsulting.com/becomingfearless. And it relates actually very well to the second pillar of self-leadership, which is confidence. And confidence is the belief in yourself and the belief in your skills. And generally, when I work with entrepreneurs that doubt themselves, it is as simple as the fact that they haven't told themselves enough why they're great. And it sounds so simple when you say that out loud, but generally someone doubts themselves because they have been thinking negative thoughts. They've been reinforcing that negative belief, maybe due to external circumstances, getting rejected, failure. I have some clients right now, bankruptcy, rejection, whatever it is, but they've been focusing on those instances as defining moments in their life and then repeating them constantly in their mind. And every time you repeat a negative thought pattern, it becomes a pattern that becomes a belief, because just imagine someone in your brain and you have a thought, and that thought zooms through your brain. And as it zooms through your brain, it's almost like someone is taking like a shovel or a bowling ball and rolling it down a specific pathway. And the more you roll that ball down that pathway, the more you use that shovel in that one specific spot, the more embedded that belief comes within your mind. So the only way to change those beliefs, even if you don't believe it, is to, and it's very difficult, you can't really fill up the hole, but you can start digging one kind of next to it that has a positive thought pattern. And as you dig, you're tossing dirt into that negative belief pattern that's next to it. So you're filling in the negative belief and you're digging out the positive belief. And becoming fearless really just says all these negative things that you think are just information that you're choosing to interpret in a negative way. Fear. Just imagine what that is for a moment. I am maybe I'm afraid of public speaking. I'm an entrepreneur. I need to post publicly. I need to be in social media, etc. But I am uncomfortable about it because I in my body I feel discomfort, and so because I label discomfort as something bad, I now label that as fear, and so I don't do the thing that I think is important because I'm afraid of it and I think that it's bad. We're just interpreting a physical response, that information of I feel uncomfortable, as something bad instead of I feel uncomfortable. Let me interpret this as, wow, I must be on the right path. I must be doing something that's important for my business because I feel that it is. So now I must post. And it's like this interrupt of the information to say this is valuable information because it means that I'm doing something right or I should take action in this way, instead of interpreting that information as a threat and thinking that you're not safe and then avoiding the thing that you actually want to do.
I love it. Everyone is dealing with fear. Everyone. It is just part of the human experience. Fear, though, will stop so many well-intentioned, truly heart-centered business owners from following their, going for their dreams, following their desires for a better quality of life. And a lot of people have not been taught how to deal with fear. And so they just keep setting these really great intentions for themselves and for their life and for their business. But once they encounter that fear, it becomes the obstacle or the setback that will either slow them down or stop them completely.
If we believe that fear is something to avoid, then yes, yeah, we're going to hold off. I don't know any successful entrepreneur that backs away from something that feels uncomfortable. Everyone that I know that has been really successful in business confronts the things that they know are important, but they're initially afraid of. I think we have to almost normalize the fact that you will feel fear. The difference between someone that takes action though and someone that actually just kind of hides away from it is that one person feels fear and understands that it just means that they're doing something that they haven't done before or doing something that they're a little unsure of. While someone else sees it fear and says that's something that I need to avoid. And I think making this kind of like a very simple concept. So there's a page in the book around career growth that talks about doing the work after you network. So generally what happens when we'll go to an event as an entrepreneur, maybe even just messaging someone on LinkedIn, we take all the time to network with them, to build those initial connections, to create some sort of value. But then afterwards, maybe we feel uncomfortable following up. They won't remember me. I said something so silly. Who am I to build a relationship with them? They were just being nice. So all these negative beliefs come in that are related to fear. It's fear of I'm not good enough, fear of being rejected. And if we reinterpret that as, so we take our ego out of it, we take the fear out of it, you're just following up with someone that you've already met, that has already actually asked you to potentially build a relationship with them by their initial investment of time and energy and resources. And if you don't follow up, they're going to think maybe you don't like them. And so they're sitting at home, like banging their head against the wall. Like, what happened to Ben? Ben, I really liked Ben. Ben didn't reach out to me. I thought we were going to do something great. And so this like feeling of it being insecure, feeling nervous about reaching out because of your doubts. For all you're almost, it's almost being like sitting in your fear is almost being selfish. When some people might think selfish is making the outreach, building the relationship. But the only way I got to that idea is by thinking of myself as my best leader for me, realizing what actions that would help me, and that align with my values and align with the relationships that I want to build in this type of situation. And this is a strategy, it's a mindset that can be learned. But all it just requires practice. It requires reinforcement. Sometimes it requires a coach or consultant or a peer mentor. But it's putting you first and it's putting you in the driver's seat. And if you almost say, what would a leader do in this situation? What would this person instruct me to do? So if you go to a leader and you go, I met this person, it was really great. They seem to be a valuable relationship in my life. What do you think that leader is going to tell you? Don't reach out. That would be rude. No, they're probably going to say, that sounds really awesome. You should probably reach out now. You should reach out tomorrow and set up a meeting. And so who's the leader that you want to be for yourself to help you reach your goals?
That is a powerful tip right there. Everything that you just talked about with regard to fear. And I love that you highlighted the fact that successful entrepreneurs feel fear, but they do it anyway. And a lot of our well-intentioned friends and family that say they have the desire to start the business or to go back to school or to whatever, and they don't do it. They're never going to enjoy the benefits of busting through that fear, doing it anyway. That mindset shift is so valuable. And I think that it's so important that as we are becoming a more powerful leader of ourself, that we lock those things in and we remind ourselves when we're experiencing the old trigger or the uncomfortable feelings that in the past may have been the obstacle or the place where we'd stop and we'd go back to what's comfortable and familiar and known instead of pushing to that next level. So I love everything that you shared there. And I think that this is the perfect opportunity for me to ask how our listeners can connect with you. Remind us again where they are able to get the book. I know that it's coming out in September, so it's possible somebody listening to this when we first release it, it's not out yet, but it will be out soon, or it is already out depending on when someone is listening to this.
So thank you. You can go to liveforyourselfconsulting.com, liveforyourselfconsulting.com/becoming fearless and find it. You can also look up Dr. Benjamin Ritter on LinkedIn, also on Instagram, Dr. Benjamin Ritter, and you'll see all the posts for the book and for our content, our podcasts, our free downloads. And hopefully we can help you take one step towards becoming fearless.
Great episode, great content. I want to thank you so much for being with us today. You shared some nuggets, and I think our listeners were able to probably take some things to heart that may even be somewhat intuitive, and yet it's not always intuitive because we do tend to default. So thank you again for everything you shared today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. The simplest strategies might be the most effective. They just probably aren't.
And of course, I've got to thank all of our listeners. You know we're doing this for you. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.